imagine what a very challenging task it's been to work in India for the last 30 years, but I'm really amazed by the incredible achievements that we will be hearing about more this evening. As detailed in your book, Lord Loomba, Widow Warrior, The Cause That Shaped My Life. I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about that. So the Foundation have provided thousands of women with education, with vocational training, support, paving the way for them to reclaim their dignity. What strikes me most before I finish, though, is Lord Loomba's belief in the power of collective action, how individuals, institutions, societies can come together to really make a lasting difference. It is this spirit of collaboration that we also seek to nurture here at the British Council through the work that we do. So tonight, in partnership with the Loomba Foundation and Bloomsbury Publishing, we're delighted to celebrate not only the launch of a book, but a career dedicated to bringing about social change. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alison. It is a pleasure to hear you. As we have the tradition of welcoming our guests with flowers, I'm going to request some of our friends and family to kindly come and give the bouquets. May I request Rita Sarkar, daughter of Lord Loomba, to kindly come and present a bouquet of flowers to Miss Lindy Cameron, British High Commissioner to India. May I request young Rashi Sarkar, granddaughter of Lord Loomba and Lady Loomba, to present a bouquet of flowers to Alison Barrett, Director, British Council. May I request Mr. Amit Chaudhary, trustee of the Loomba Foundation, to kindly present a bouquet of flowers to Mr. Yashwardhan Sinha. Yashwardhan Sinha was a former diplomat and the ambassador to UK, and we shortly hear him. May I request Mr. Harjeev Singh, trustee, Loomba Foundation, to present a bouquet to Ms. Lakshmi Puri, former Deputy Executive Director of United Nations Women. May I request Mrs. Toba to present a bouquet of flowers to Lady Loomba, who's right next door to you. And may I finally request Miss Alison Barrett to present a bouquet to Lord Loomba, the author of today's book. May I request Dr. Moole and Rajiv and Harjeev Singh Ji to join us on the dais as requested by Lord Loomba. May I request Alison Barrett to present a bouquet to Mr. Rajiv Berry, the Managing Director of Bloomsbury India. Hemanji, can you present a bouquet to Mr. Mule? Dr. Mule, please. And may I request Rajatji to kindly present a bouquet to Harjeevji, please. Thank you very much. As we go ahead with the program, may I now request Dr. Rajiv Berry, Managing Director, Bloomsbury, to kindly share his views on this program.
Mr. Yashwardhan Sinha, Mrs. Lakshmi Puri, Priya Ingurani, ladies and gentlemen. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today at the launch of The Widow Warrior by Lord Loomba. I think it's one of the most significant books that we published this year, essentially because it is a mix of two very integral contents. One, it tells the story of Lord Loomba, who, from his childhood, a lot of hardships, the biggest kind of blow being that he lost his father at a young age. And probably that's the fact that when his mother became a widow, and that stuck with him, which finally resulted in the huge amount of effort that he put into creating the Loomba Foundation, which has achieved huge amount of success. So one was essentially the story of how, against all the hardships, as a youngster, he built a huge business. And the book tells you about the fact that he went for his education to US, which was difficult. He had a lot of difficulties out there too. And then he came to UK and he built up his business from absolutely nothing. So I think that story tells us how, with a lot of hard work, and that also tells us about Lord Loomba's ability, his astute business sense, his foresight, and his ability to look at opportunities and create businesses out of that. So one is that story, inspirational. But the second one is the humanitarian side. I'm not too sure how it was able to create such an incredible successful foundation, because it started from a germ, but he managed to build it to such a sizable opportunity where thousands and thousands of widows and the children have benefited from the help that the foundation has given. And it's not just in India where there's been huge amount of effort and success achieved, but it's also other parts of the world, especially the underdeveloped world. So I think these two are what really makes the book. One, the business person, and second, the humanitarian. And I think overall, what struck me most when I read the book was that we all get too engrossed in our lives, in our businesses, in our work, and we somehow don't manage to pay enough attention to what we can do for others. And I'm sure there are a lot of us who can do something. And I think it's, to an extent, the book is an awakening call to a lot of us as to let's step forward away from what we are into currently, adopt a worthy cause, make a difference there, and in that process also perhaps make a difference to ourselves too. So I think this is what has struck me about the book, and I think it's a must read for everyone, essentially because of what I'm talking about, the inspiration it gives, the desire to do something that it imbues in the reader, and the fact that, well, you can achieve anything as Lord Loomba has shown in the book. So great. I'm so glad you're all here. I look forward to a very, I'm sure, a very inspirational and interesting evening. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajivji. May I now request, before I request Yashwardhan Sinha ji to share his thoughts, I just share his distinguished career. For 37 years, Yashwardhan Sinha ji has been a seasoned diplomat who has handled several important assignments at the Ministry of External Affairs and in various diplomatic missions, including the High Commissioner to UK and to Sri Lanka. He's also been the ambassador to Venezuela, Consulate General of India in Dubai. He has served on various posts in the Ministry of External Affairs. His CV is very impressive and very long, but I'm going to request Mr. Sinha to say a few words about what his association with Lord Loomba and the family and his experience when he was the High Commissioner in UK of the kind of work that they dealt with on the Loomba Foundation. Thank you.
Lord Loomba, Her Excellency Lindy Cameron, the British High Commissioner, a senior and esteemed colleague, and celebrated author in her own right, Mrs. Lakshmi Puri, Alison Belt, the Director of the British Council, Dr. Rajiv Berry, my good friend and colleague, Dhyaneshwar Mule, Ingorani, and all those in the panel I have missed. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted and honored to be here, such a distinguished panel at the launch of Lord Loomba's autobiography. I recall I met him for the first time when I was in London, when I got posted to London, and there was an immediate connection that I felt. And the last that I met Lord Loomba and Lady Loomba was again a function that they'd organized as a farewell in the House of Lords. But my wife and I were departing the UK. But I think in between we had interactions on numerous occasions, and what really struck me was his dedication to a cause, and such a worthwhile cause. His mother was 37 years old in 1954 when she was widowed, left behind 7 children, and in the memory of his mother, I think in 2005 he established the International Women's Day, and then the UN, of course, recognized it in 2010 as the International Women's Day, 23rd of June. And I recall on the 23rd of June, he would have a function with so many dignitaries. And I remember the one function where I was sitting next to Mrs. Cherry Blair on one side and Mrs. Paul Kagame on the other side. And it was fascinating engaging them in conversation. But what really impressed me was the dedication that Loomba Foundation has in looking after the welfare of widows globally and their children. In fact, if I recall correctly, there are about 10,000 odd widows in India who have benefited from the largesse of the Loomba Foundation. And in my own state of Bihar, my home state of Bihar, he has done tremendous work. I'm aware of the scholarships that he has extended to children of widows. But such a creditable job, not just in UK or India, but globally, not just necessarily in what is called the Global South, but all over. I think the Loomba Foundation and Lord Loomba in particular deserves a great deal of credit for the fantastic work that they have done. And on this occasion, the launch of his autobiography, I'd like to wish him all the very best and the Loomba Foundation to continue their good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yashi. May I now request Ms. Lakshmi Puri, former Executive Director of United Nations, to share her thoughts. But before I do that, I'm going to just share the experiences Lakshmi Puri ji has had. Lakshmi Puri ji was the youngest entrant into the Indian Foreign Service, and she was retired as the former Deputy Executive Director of the United Nations. Prior to her 15-year stint at the United Nations, she served as an Indian diplomat for 28 years. After representing India abroad in key bilateral and multilateral diplomatic assignments for 28 years, she served at the United Nations for 15 years in various leadership capacities. She thus contributed to the United Nations major projects on peace and security, sustainable development, climate change, human rights, and humanitarian action. Lakshmi Puriji is an author of the novel Swallowing the Sun, which has received universal critical acclaim and become a national bookseller in record time. May I request you, Lakshmi ji, to share your thoughts, please.
Good evening and namaskar. This is a very emotional moment for me, Lord Loomba and Lady Loomba. Recalling our association from both London and New York, the UN phase and the London phase. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here, and I would like to also recognize all the others on the dais, High Commissioner Cameron, Alison Barrett, the Director of the British Council, and by the way, I consider British Council the fount of my love of English literature. From the days that I used to make the British Council Library at IFAX Hall building my adda, you know, my center of study and stimulation. So, and then of course, my dear friend and former colleague, Ambassador Yarsina, who served with such distinction in UK apart from other countries, and then Dhyaneshwar Muleji, Ambassador, and Priya Hingorani, and of course Rajiv Beriji from Bloomsbury. Now, I'm also here in a dual capacity. I also represent my husband today. I don't like normally to acknowledge that dual capacity, but today I have to, because he wanted to be here today to honor and to be there at the launch of a biography that is not just a biography as was mentioned, but that is something which is an inspiration to all those, both Indians and those who migrate to either UK or US, but who still think about reaching out to the dispossessed, reaching out to the disadvantaged and the marginalized, and think of doing something beyond themselves and their business. So this is really a very special moment, and my husband Hardeep Singh Puriji, who is the Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, but his introduction is most as an admirer and friend of Lord Loomba, who would like to also pay a very heartfelt tribute and felicitate Lord Loomba on his long and distinguished innings as a philanthropist as much as a successful businessman. Let me also recall that I had the privilege of collaborating with Lord Loomba and his foundation when I was with UN Women, and the situation of widows, that we collect the situation of widows, that we collect data, we get knowledge about, because you know that's the first thing in we identify the problem of widows. What is their condition and in which countries? So one is to collect the knowledge and data and information so that we could make policies and suggest policies. The other was to mainstream the issue of widows into the global gender compact that was being evolved in terms of norms and standards on gender and political commitments that governments made on gender equality and women's empowerment. And then the other aspect was, I think it was referred to, and even the book reflects that, advocacy and movement building. Because the widows have